So here are the Craig jig screws. These are 1.25 inches. I got them mixed up. These are coarse. These are good for softwood. Pine is a softwood.
In part 1, you saw that I created all the pocket holes for the pocket hole screws. Now I'm putting the pocket hole screws into the pocket holes, and you can see that I'm using the coarse screws. They're 1.25 inches, and they will drive into the other legs as well as the bottom of the table. So that's solely what I'm using here to build this particular table, as the pocket hole screws.
Here I decided to use the clamp to really hold it. It's underneath the tabletop, so it's very secured very nicely, and it should be absolutely dead on flush. So I'll do that here, and I'll also do it over here at this end. This is one side, this is the bottom, there's the top, and this will go in like that. Okay, I'll make another one like this.
Now I'm using something called Bondo. It's an all-putty purpose epoxy. You mix it with, it's this big globby gray stuff. It's really noxious too, so either wear a respirator or open the doors, and you put this hardener in, and it's not equal parts 1-to-1. It's not really a science. So, but anyway, you mix it up, and it's like putty. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add it to the outside rim of the tabletop. I'm filling a couple of holes now, but I'm going to end up adding this to the outside to give it some texture, so it looks more, I don't know, like rock, I guess. You decide what it looks like. It's very malleable at this stage, but you have to work with it very fast because it dries very quickly. So what I'm doing now is filling these dents from the screws. I want it to be pretty flat, even though it's going to be hidden underneath the cabinet. Now I'm moving on to the edge where I'm adding texture to the sides of the tabletop, and this is the main reason I use the Bondo. It dries so hard and it can form into just about any shape. So this is very unusual, malleable stuff that you make into, you're basically sculpting. And It is really hard. It is really good to use for this kind of purpose. I learned this from a company called Stone Coat Countertops. I'm not getting paid to say this, but I really like their ideas. You can check them out. They have their own YouTube channel.
So this is the way it looks when it's done. I did it all the way around the whole top. And down that front too.
Like I mentioned earlier, this stuff dries as hard as a rock, and these little points are wicked sharp. So this whole thing needs to be, obviously I'm using a chisel and scraper. Scraper wasn't even good enough. I had to use a chisel to sand down these peaks, and I'm trying a number of different things, including this planer, and then I sand and I sand and I sand to make these edges soft. And you can see I'm using an 80 grit, which is a pretty aggressive sandpaper, but that's what was required to really get this smooth. And finally, I'm putting an oil-based black glossy paint on the top and the bottom. And I'm doing this because the colors of the resin that I'm going to infuse into the resin and lay on top of this, they're going to be on the dark side. And this is a really good base to use, a base color to use for the resin colors, which you'll see in part 3.
So now we're at this stage. This is the underside, and I painted it mainly because for 2 inches in it's going to have a resin coating on it. But I'm going to put the legs on in these locations. So it is, try and point it, from this edge to the leg it's 2 inches. From this edge to the leg it's 2 inches, and the same all the way around. So if you look at this corner here, it'll be 2 inches in from this edge and 2 inches in from this edge. And the 2x4 is going to sit, well, the scrap is going to sit like this. I'm not touching it because it's still drying, so I'm not putting it down yet. And I've got both legs created here and down at the other end. And I'll put those on, but I'll make sure that the 41 inches between here and the other leg fit right before I secure it in place. So I'm trying to figure out the shelf size at the bottom, and I'm doing it based on my dimensions that are on the underside of this table. And I've got between here and here 17. I took the 2 inches and the 1.5, I got 3.5, and I multiplied that times 2 for this side and this side, got 7. This is 24 between here and here, and I subtracted the 7 and ended up with 24 minus 7 is 17. This way, it should be the same length as these boards here, which was 41 inches. And when I measured that, again, I've got 2 inches, 1.5 times 2, 7 again, and I end up with 41 inches, which is the same length as these guys.
So both sets of legs are all assembled. You can see them sitting there, and I'm also staining everything at this point. Those long boards I'm working on now are 41 inches, so one section of those is for the skirt, and the other that will go on the base of the floor area of the cabinet, table, rolling island, whatever you want to call it.
And that's the color, and I like it. It's soft, but it's still brown.
So I measured in 2 inches on the corner, both sides in, and then I taped it so I didn't have to struggle to see the lines when I lined up the legs. So I put this long skirt on first before I attached the other leg. I wanted to make sure that they were up close to each other and the legs, there wasn't any gaps between the skirt, the long skirt, and the leg itself. So I attached this first, as you can see. I attached one end first. I had to unscrew things and make sure things were square. So I attached this end first, and then I went and put the other legs down on the other side, and then I attached the rest of this long skirt. The framing was all done, the staining was done. I attached it to the top and flipped it over, and then I realized, it's much better to resin this top when it's not attached to the bottom. I don't want to get gook on the bottom that's already finished. I removed the top and put it on a flat table where I could resin it without any problems of getting resin all over the base. Part 3 will go into the building of the drawer, the building of the cabinets below, installing the shelf, as well as the resin, which is really fascinating. I'll leave a link below and also in the end for part 1 of this video. Please like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.